Hey everybody, welcome back. I was just out at the wood pile here and I found these eggs under these rocks. Where do you think they came from? Well, let's head into the shop. But please remember, this is not an instructional video and is meant for entertainment purposes only. Your safety is your responsibility. Well, let's get started. So we're just going to start out with a small branch from that diseased chokecherry tree that we turned the emerging goblet and the wild winged bull from. So let's take it over the bandsaw and mill up some blanks. I'm now mounting the blanks between centers and removing the bark with the roughing gouge and forming a tenon with the parting tool. And now I can just mount it in the chuck. So I'm just going to use the skew chisel and get some practice in on this project. If you're not comfortable with the skew chisel yet, please don't use it near your chuck, because as you're cutting this way, if you get a catch, it's going to push that tool right back towards the chuck, and I'll just let your imagination run wild with that one. And that only takes a very split second. So, let's get her going. Nice easy cuts. Now with the skew chisel you can make two separate types of cuts. The easiest way to roll a bead is to use just the very heel of the tool, that little point. But you can't take very much wood at one time. So if you check out Woodturning 21 on YouTube, you'll see he doesn't use the point, he uses the whole bottom third of the edge still, even up to halfway point. So try that out on some scrap wood sometime, but not near the chuck. Little too much of a point there still. Just want to round it over just a little bit. There we go. Now we're going to form the bottom of the egg, which is more of a bead. Here's a tip for you. If you're having a hard time, keep the skew chisel into your hip. Don't hold it out like this. You'll be very, very awkward. And you'll not be able to control that bevel very accurately, and that's the whole trick of the skew chisel, is getting that bevel rubbing and then engaging this cutting edge. Okay? So, again, keep it close to your hip. Don't be afraid to grab a parting tool and get rid of some of that wood that's in your way. Ever notice that a parting tool is basically a very thick skew chisel? You can learn some skew technique with the parting tool as well. It's a little easier. I don't want to take too much though, because we don't want to get any vibration, especially with the skew chisel. Take a little more. Now this egg's looking just slightly fat, so I'm just going to take a couple really light passes right here just to thin it out a tiny bit. An egg shape is actually a lot trickier than it looks. Of course, all that vibration I'm getting is going to give me some real nice chatter to have to sand off, but hey, this is a nice little skill builder project. We should have fun with it. We get a little sanding extra, big deal. See my body language as I did that? Don't use your hands. There's not much control there. You got nothing to brace against. That's feeling a lot better. So now I'm going to use the parting tool a little bit further. Remember, we still have to sand this thing, so don't get too energetic and part it off before you're ready. That's my first egg in about 6 months, so I'm actually pretty happy with the shape. What I'm going to do now is just move on to sanding, and then we'll part it off and have just a tiny little nub on the bottom to correct. For sanding, I'm just using 220, 320, 400, and 600 grit sandpaper, and I'm using my hand to reverse the lathe between grits a little bit to help pick up those fibers and sever them off more cleanly. I'm going to use a very simple finish on this piece. I'm just going to use some shellac, and then I'm going to just top coat it with some beeswax. So, seal her up with shellac. Oh, cool. Soak her in pretty good. There, I'm going to let that dry, and then I'm going to buff on some beeswax. Before I buff on the wax, I'm just going to lightly scuff the surface with 600, just to make sure that we don't have any uneven buildup of the finish. We're really just sealing the wood. We're not trying to make a build with the shellac. So, just a light scuff. Wipe off the dust. Now we've got sealed wood ready to accept the wax. So just going to use some wiping wax, which is just 50-50 mineral spirits and beeswax. Don't need much. Since we sealed it, it's not going to absorb into the wood. Okay, so it's now applied. So what I'm going to do is crank the lathe up, and we'll buff it in. So right now the mineral spirits are leaving the wax, they're evaporating. So it's going to get a little stiffer. And you can already feel it's getting tougher to buff on. It's not slick anymore. It's kind of tacky. So at that point, that's where I'm going to hit the speed. Whew, some dust. And we'll melt that wax with the friction. See, it's melting on top. Give a real nice buffing. We're going to buff off the extra. We don't want a real bunch on top. We just want it to have that nice matte sheen. There. That's looking pretty good. I find with this stuff, if it was too shiny, you wouldn't really be able to see the figure as well. You get too much reflection on this rounded surface. So, now we can part her off. And to part her off, we're just going to continue working down that bead side with the skew chisel. So, face shield back on. Now, you can still use the heel and work your way in there, but it's so far down tight in the corner here, like tight in this little crevice, we could actually use the longer point of the skew now. Now I'm just going to clean up the bottom with the skew chisel lightly. Watch your fingers. Don't get wild like this. If you have to, clamp it down in something and do it by... use the leverage of a vise or... There. Now I'm just going to touch that up with the sandpaper, and then I'll apply that shellac sealer and then a little bit of wax, and this is done. But I think what we're going to do is I'm going to turn the next egg with the camera a little closer in high speed so you can kind of see the mechanics of the tool at work. Boy, that one went a lot smoother. Maybe I should have done a practice egg first. But hopefully that showed you a little bit more of how that skew chisel edge works. You know, you can either use that point, or you can keep that bevel flat and use the bottom third of the tool. Again, try it on scrap wood and not near a chuck. Before we end this video, I'd like to do a couple shoutouts first. My first shoutout goes to Alan Scannell. He's a fellow turner from across the pond, and he does all types of turnings in his backyard shop. And recently, he even restored a World War II era knife, so check the links in the description down below for his channel. And next we got Make Things with Rob. He does all types of projects and offers plenty of shop tips, and recently he even experimented with using different size of wood particles for fills, everything from dust to shavings. So go ahead, check him out, links in the description below. Thanks for tuning into this week's video. I'll have some photos of the finished eggs coming up at the end. If you liked the video, please click the like button and share it around. If you have any questions or suggestions for me, please fire those off in the comment section down below. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please do. I'll have a new video out every Friday. So thank you very much, and have yourself a great day.